Two. Okay. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Kevin and Son. Hello, my name is Kevin McLemore. I am a three-time published author and award-winning author. I am also the CEO of RMK Productions and Network. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Through the power of our stories, our mission is to uplift, share stories and experience and perspectives, create a framework where teaching, learning, and modeling can exist. Our purpose is hope, helping other people every single day. And ladies and gentlemen, I've said this often, and we always bring very special people here, but I'm bringing someone here that's from across the pond, London. Right now, they are honoring the life of their queen. So we're burying Queen Elizabeth today. And Mr. Morris, the Connector, has granted us a couple minutes of his time in order to share his story. But I will tell you, there are few stories that ever come across as original, and this may be one. This is a rags to riches story. This is a tragedy to prosperity story. And this young man, as dynamic as he is, I want you to be prepared. He is a father of five. He's an international speaker, and because of his troubled past, Morris has come full circle. And with his empowering story, he has helped other people in London with the knives and gunfighting and crime in London streets to turn the corner and provide opportunity and possibilities where there's no possibilities that to exist. Morris has did his time. And now that he's free, he is now turning the corner. He is an established businessman in London. He is one of the most sought after public speakers. And if you stay around long enough, I will tell you how Morris, the Connector, is connected to names like Justin Bieber, Beyonce, the late Whitney Houston, Floyd Mayweather Jr., and more. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, I want to introduce you to my brother across the pond, young man, dynamic. When you hear public speakers out there, Mr. Morris, the Connector. Welcome to Talking with Kevin and Son, Morris.
Kevin, thank you for that introduction, and thank you for having me here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Morris, with every motivational speaker that I've ever had a conversation with, we all have a story of saying where we started. We've all had a troubled past. Listening to Les Brown, listening to Tony Robbins, listen to some other professional speakers, they all had hard times. But very few have had some of the times that you've had. Growing up in the streets of London, you were a child that the streets called you, if I may say. Your purpose and direction today wasn't the purpose and direction you took. Tell us about the young Morris coming up.
The young Morris coming up at 7 years old with his 5 siblings, growing up with his mum and dad, was a fun-loving guy, my mum used to call me a parrot and my siblings when I was 7 years old, and take the mickey out of me and things like that. We used to play about. But fast forward, I grew up without my dad because my dad left home one day. I used to love watching my dad go to work and crying, Dad, can I come with you to go to work? But one day he didn't come home. That was a sad moment for me. And, he split up with my mom and, fast forward, I was going to school, being a bit disruptive at school. And my teacher once said to me, I'll be nothing in life, which was a horrible thing to say. I remember that up until this day, Kevin. The young Morris remembers that deeply.
Now, when you talk about you were disruptive in elementary school, high school, what does disruption mean?
Bad behavior, not listening at school, mucking about in the class, telling to stop doing things, and I wouldn't. But I wish that teacher would have said to me and asked me what was going on at home, because there was trouble at home with my mum being sick and the authorities wanting to take us away and put us in a home. So discipline wasn't my forte, I would say.
So you were raised what most Black people say broken home. White people say
Yeah,
divorced parents. We say
yeah.
broken home is the word, the link that connects love and liberty between father and mother were disconnected. What was your mother like, Morris?
My mum was a loving mum. She never had a lot, but one thing she taught me was manners and respect. I can remember the love that she instilled in me up until this day, and the manners to respect people, like even friends of hers we used to call auntie and uncle. So I grew up with a great deal of respect for older people, not like the kids now. The kids now, they have a problem respecting their elders now, but we grew up knowing our place as a kid. Even though I was a disruptive kid, I would be quiet amongst my elders, I would say. Yeah.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I've got there were six of us. So I had three brothers and two sisters and me. So I have six of us, yeah. So three brothers and two sisters.
And did all of your brothers and sisters share the same plight? And did they react to this the separation of your parents the same way that you did?
No, I guess I reacted different. Like I always say, we're all different. I reacted different. One of my sisters reacted different as well because she wanted to leave and go with my dad. But yeah, it was a disruptive time for us. I don't think parents really see the disruption that happens in the kid because they're too busy paying attention to themselves. Because my mum, I guess she was depressed. Do you know what I mean? At that time, and that's mostly what we've seen. We've seen her being unhappy at that time in my life. I could still remember it, and the kids suffer from that because I suffered from that because discipline, like I said, she couldn't really discipline us in the way a father would. So I would say parents need to stick together if they can, because I missed my dad, you know what I mean? And I think that was a cause for me growing up and being the way I was in a certain aspect at school.
So your father was totally absent from your life as a child.
Yeah, totally absent from the age of 7, absent, no father. Yeah.
All right. Do you have a relationship with your father today?
Oh, God bless him. He's passed away, but I did. At the age of 16, I found my dad and I met my dad, got to know my dad, got to love my dad. And I understood why my mom didn't want to be with him, because I've got old some other brothers. Do you know what I mean? So my dad was sort of, he liked the women, and that was the reason I found out why my mom and dad split up.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when you say that you got into all types of trouble as a young man, in America we call that a juvenile delinquent. But you took acting out as a juvenile to a whole nother level, which um, most of us as parents we have experienced. Being a parent to a teenager is a test of your will. But you made some decisions um, in your youth when you say you were acting out, and I'm trying not to give the 1.0 version of Morris. I'm going to go to 2.5 version of Morris. Um, you had criminal activity, you had drug activity, and because of your involvement in there, somehow you ended up being incarcerated. Please correct me if wrong. Tell me how that started, who initiated, and what drove you to that type of life.
Yeah, what drove me to that sort of life, which some of the kids are suffering with that now, is not being able to get a job. I can remember one episode, for example, I went for a job, I got turned down. My white friend went for the job, he said he got the job. I said to him, but they said there was no vacancies, no more vacancies. He says he's got the job. So I guess I rebelled against that. If I look back, I shouldn't have. I should have continued doing what I was doing, looking for a job. But some of my friends was making money and selling drugs. So I joined them and I started to sell drugs. And, they say money is the root of all evil, but I don't believe it is. I believe the love of money and I fell in love with the money. I was able to buy things for my siblings and buy things, many things by selling drugs. So I guess I got used to selling drugs and it was enjoying it at that time, making money. So, yeah, and that in the end, I ended up in prison.
And how old were you when you were incarcerated?
I was about 20. Yeah,
Okay.
20.
So
I had a long run out there on the streets, but eventually it catches up on you, and it caught up on me, and I went to jail. I never knew no other way, I would say, you know, at that time, not being able to get a job, the prejudice in London at that time as well, drove me that way.
now, Morris. All right. I am going to, and I normally don't position myself in this with the guests, but I grew up black the same way you have, and I know with the conversations I have with young people, I always talk about. You and I've had this conversation: chance and choice. We all have the same chances. We all have the same choice, and whatever excuse we may use, that a uh, person that's of a different shade of us is provided with another privilege over us. And I'm surprised, and I was not aware that prejudice across the pond was at the same level or even at a greater level than it is here in the United States. Because understanding my history, that the English military was part of the slave trade bringing us over here, did not realize that that prejudice was still as present when you were growing up. So chances, you you had an opportunity to get an education, and you chose the education from the street. What did you learn while you were in prison?
What I learned while in prison, they say, show me your friend, I'll show you your future. When I went to jail, it didn't make me better. Do you know what I mean? I learned to do things better on the streets. You know what I mean? So I came out because my thoughts then was different from now. That my awareness and the way I perceived things to be, I thought I was going to have to sell drugs for the rest of my life. But looking back now, I would say to a 17-year-old Morris that you should have just stuck to finding a job and doing things a different way. But at that time, my thoughts was different. So I was thinking different, so I became different. I just wanted to build myself up the ladder selling drugs. So when I came out of jail, I still started to do the same thing again.
Yeah. And at that time when you came out and you got your freedom, all right, was Morris headed in a different direction, or was he on a boomerang trip back to the prison? What happened after you were released at 20 something odd years of age?
When I was released, I drifted back into the same thing, selling drugs, you know what I mean, and all that. And it was an adversity that made me change from that. I was just used to selling drugs, making money. So I got used to that. Do you know what I mean?
All right. So when you say money is the root of all evil, so even though you learned the evil and understanding where the root, you return back to the soil that was reaping a harvest that would not grow long term. At some point, reading your bio, you have a fantastic transformation story, but there's also been a couple of tragedies. You're a father of 5 kids, and from what I can remember, two of your children have passed on, I believe. And please correct me. And you can name your children by name, because this is something that at some points can be shared with their children and share with your great grandchildren and great children thereafter. So, and if this is a trigger for you and it's too painful, you don't have to answer the question. But I know people are going to be listening to, why are we listening to this story when he had an opportunity to be free of prison, and he went right back to the life, and now he is one of the most sought after motivational speakers in London. I want to get to that point, and people, for my listeners, I want you to listen to this. Do not judge someone at a higher standard than you like to be judged yourself, because I would not have this young man on here if he didn't have a story to be told. So please listen and take a look at your child, because as long as your child has an appliance in his hand, he is at risk to compromise his freedom and his life and his future with that little cell phone. So Morris's story is not original, but what makes his story original is how he transformed tragedy into prosperity. And with that said, Morris, you started a business. Tell me how your life started to turn around.
My life started to turn around. Like I said, I came from jail. I started to do the same thing, drinking, smoking, making a lot of money, you know. And it was the death of my son, Dwayne. He was 18-month old. He had an accident at home. And when he had the accident at home and he passed away and he died, I wanted to die too. I mean, my mom used to say, come to church, Morris, all the time. And I used to say, I ain't got enough time. But here I was, mind was playing tricks on me because I wanted to die. I lost my son. I must have hugged him only 10 or 15 times because I was out there drinking, smoking, and thinking like that was success, you know, but success is me here telling my truth right now. And when he passed, I started to go to church with my mum and the light started to get brighter. Every time I went to church and praising God and just changed my mindset. When I look back now, it was a mindset reset because I started to enjoy going to church. And eventually I just wanted to work. You know, I decided I just wanted my other kids to just see me differently, you know. So I just started to work hard. You know, I would say adversity introduces a man to himself. It introduced me to myself, Kevin, because I started to change. And I believe in order to be different, you have to do something different. And I took myself out the environment. I believe I was a product of my environment. Like I said, I was doing what everybody else was doing. But here I was now going to church, working, and feeling good about working. You know, any job like double glazing, all different stuff. And I would say to everyone, if you're enjoying something, continue doing it because I started to continue and work and just work any job, you know, that I enjoyed doing, I was doing, just working hard, you know.
But Morris, how did you keep the streets from calling you back into the life you had versus the life you were going into? Because
Yeah.
I know it's easy, fast money. That's the plight of every black man here in the United States. Fast money, fast cars, fancy cars, beautiful women. How did you avoid being pulled back?
Yeah, I avoid being pulled back because of my determination and my commitment to God in believing that I could be somebody different. So everybody thought I'd gone mad. The word on the street had it that Morris, my nickname was Starboy. So the word on the street was Starboy's gone crazy. He's gone mad. He's listening to God. You know, he's reading his Bible. He's going to church. You know, so the way they perceive me to be is I've gone crazy now because I'm not amongst them. You know, and some guys used to phone me and say, what you doing, Morris? You come in. I said, no, listen, this is my life now. And I started to enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Going to church and working, you know?
Now, Morris, here in the United States, one of the biggest problems we have is people that have served their time, have come back on to the streets and find only to discover that society is holding them still as a prisoner and not being free. Don't have no idea what it's like in London and the way people perceive you. But for some reason, you've come out on the other side. Um, First real job, first owning your company. How did you go into ownership of a company? Being a person that used to sling drugs and commit crimes in the streets. How did you go legit? What was your first job?
Well, I would say to everyone that's listening is it takes time. It takes baby steps. And I made that decision and stay committed to what I was doing. If you stay committed to something, it will happen for you. Don't worry about when, worry about what you're doing. So when I look back now, I just wanted to work. And it was a procession of things. Like I said, I started to sell double glazing. I started to do like courier work. From courier work, I started to open a shop, got enough money together, got a little shop, a market stall. Market stall, me and my girlfriend, we used to sell clothes on a market stall. Eventually, I started to open a shop, and I opened a shop on the high street. After about 3 years, we was able to get a shop. Then she was looking after the shop, I was doing the couriering, and then I met this man, and he said, I'm going to open a chauffeuring company, and I'm going to need some drivers. So do you want to come and drive there? Because he liked me. So that's what I would say to people. There's people that will help you when they've seen what you're doing. You never know what's going to happen when you're in a different environment. And from that, I started to work at this company for maybe about 3-4 years. From that, working there about 3-4 years, I met a man called Steve. He was a hedge fund manager. All different drivers used to drive him, and I started to drive him. And I drove him maybe about 6, 7 times, and he started to open up to me. And he said, "Oh, Morris, one day he said to me, Morris, you're more than a driver." He's seen in me what I didn't see in myself. And he asked me eventually, cut long story short, he asked me to come and work for him because he was opening his own hedge fund. And I said to him, I could open a company that deals with your staff and your clients. And that's how I opened my chauffeur company. I got a partner together because I was no good with administration and those sort of things. But what I was good with is speaking. So I could get clients and things like that. So I joined with another guy and we opened a small company. And that put me on the way to open in my chauffeur company and becoming a businessman. It's a journey. It was a journey, Kevin. Yeah.
It's amazing. Tony Robbins says success breeds success. And you went from driving a successful person, and he planted a seed that made you successful. I've always said 1,000 times, you can take a handful of rose petal seeds and throw them in a parking lot, and the strongest seed will find a place to get roots and grow. In the middle of a parking lot, you can grow roses, and that's what they grew with you. For anyone that has ever are Googling Morris Layton, the connector, you will see images of him, and I'm going to ask him about these images of a young man, hip hop music mogul Justin Bieber, the Queen Beyonce, the Queen before her of Queen of Queens, the late Whitney Houston, and our champion, Floyd Mayweather. I can't wait to, Morris, you tell us how you connected with them. I seen you sparring with Justin Bieber one day in the streets on one of your videos. Tell us about that experience.
That experience with Justin, because like I said, my chauffeur company, when I started my chauffeur company, it just built and built. Hard work, Bruce Lee said, has given the underdog the chance to be a champion. I believe I'm a champion now because I grew through that and reached that by being me, being connected to people. And my chauffeur company, I started to drive. One day I was asked to drive Scooter Braun, the guy that discovered Justin. So I drove him, and when he used to come, he always used to ask for me because we got along, you know what I mean? I'm a sort of guy that gets along with people. And I always used to drive him when he came, and all of a sudden he said to me, "Why don't you just drive me all the time instead of me going through that company?" I said, "Well, I'll ask the company, right, if I could drive you," because that was coming from a different source to my company. And the company said, "Yeah, all right, then let your company do it." So I had Scooter Braun as my first big client. And he liked me. He said, "Listen, how about you driving Justin? I'll give you the Justin Bieber contract." And that's how that came about. But the boxing with Justin came about because one day I went to Las Vegas for a stag night with my brothers for a stag. One of his sons was getting married. And I don't drink and smoke because since my dark times when my son passed away and I started to go to church, it's been 35 years I haven't drank alcohol. It's been 35 years I haven't smoked weed. So when we went to Las Vegas, everybody was out drinking and doing what they're doing. I went to Floyd Mayweather's gym and started training. And if you Google also UK boxer boxing with Floyd Mayweather, you'll see me sparring with his dad in the gym. So when Justin came about to London about 3-4 months after that, I was telling him about me sparring with Floyd Mayweather's dad and showing him the video. And the next day we was driving and he was mucking about with me and started to poke me in the car, and I said, for a joke, I said, "Come outside," you know what I mean? So I went outside and we just started to spar. Do you know what I mean? Just have a little touch, spar, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That goes to show you what sort of guy he is. He's a lovely guy, Justin Bieber.
And I have to echo this because I have personally had encounters with Scooter and Justin Bieber when Justin Bieber had just turned 16. My son and him are the same age. I met him in Las Vegas when he was endorsing he was a brand ambassador for a company called Tosi. And I was introduced to both Scooter as well as Justin. And I agree. He is, even as a child, he was a gentleman. My heart was broken when I met him because, funny story, my son had got busted with a girl coming out of his bedroom window when I was in Las Vegas, and I got that phone call, and I was having breakfast and looking over at Justin Bieber. He was a child sitting with nothing but adults around him. And I'm going, if Justin Bieber had done what my son had done, it had been all over international news. And I said, the only thing is my son gets a chance to live out his teenage life, and Justin Bieber has to live out his teenage life in our life. But Whitney Houston, you drove. Beyonce, you drove. You sparred with Floyd Mayweather Jr., the greatest at that weight. But you also have a great program. And before I talk about Wear Your Crown program, I want you to tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you could get in touch with me on Instagram, Morris the Connector, with double O at the end. Facebook, I'm on Facebook, Morris the Connector. You could visit my website, which is morristheconnector.com. You know, I'm on all social media platforms. Yeah.
And for those of you that are here in the United States, business people, educators that would like Morris to come across the pond into the United States to share his story, I know he's working on a book. It's not out yet, but he's got some big things coming up, some workshops, which we'll talk about. But the one thing that I want to talk about now is the reason why I brought him here, because I've heard this man talk on Clubhouse. I've spoken to him numerous of times in private conversations, and I have been moved. And so when you can move a motivator to be more motivated, that's a motivator. So Morris, the Connector, let's talk about Wear Your Crown project and your podcast.
Yeah, where my Crown project stems from me connecting to myself, getting to know myself. I believe that God was chipping away at me to become the person I am. So, you know, where your crown is, I believe we're kings and queens. And when we're born to be leaders. So that's where that comes from. Everybody's got something different. Everybody's got a gift. Everybody's got a purpose in this world to lead from the front, because leaders, true leaders, ain't manipulators. We're of service, serving others. So that's what I believe in. So Wear Your Own Crown is about leadership. And I have a focus and believe in mindset reset program, which enables you to put things down on paper. Because I believe when we see things clearly and have clarity on who we are, then we can get that vision by believing in what we're doing, you know? So my program takes things from you, yourself, and puts it on paper, questions and answers, because they say life and death is in the power of the tongue, and what you say you are, that's what you are, you know? So when you write things down, then you can see things clearly with the question and answers that you give. And I believe it will transform you, you know? It's transformed many people in London. It's made them see things different and become different. Because sometimes we get stuck, you know? So sometimes we need a little bit of inspiration, motivation. Everything grows. We need to grow by doing what's necessary in what we do every day.
You have a workshop that you're putting on in London. Is this something that would translate and transfer over to our youth here in America? And how long is that workshop?
That workshop is like a talk of inspirational people talking, and I'm plugging in American speakers, and it's live in London, English speakers, and we're targeting, when we speak, we're talking about the youths, because I believe that youths are the future of the world, right? They are the real champions, but sometimes they get left behind, and we need to focus on them a lot more, especially in England, London. I've been going to schools and just showing them that in every leader, in every follower, there's a leader, you know? Find something progressive, I say to the kids. Find something progressive. Find something you love, and that will become you. If you love it, that will be your gift. Your gift will become you, you know? And I talk to them like that, and I tell them my story. You know, they see a man come from zero to a hero, because I believe you are the pen and paper of your story. You could play the victim or the hero. I believe I'm a hero now, coming from all my adversities. Kevin.
Now, Morris, you brought up hero. And I didn't have this in my notes to ask you, but who's your hero? And if you want to say me, I'm okay with it too.
I would say my hero growing up, it was Muhammad Ali, because I believe that everybody has something different. We are all different. We are all the light. We have the light shining bright in us. And I believe the light was shining bright when he found himself and decided that no one was going to tell him what to do, because he knew within him, the love that he had for people. He's my true hero, because I believe love transcends. With love, there's no hate. We just elevate, Kevin, and he elevated into a remarkable human being. And I believe it's not about the pain we suffer here, it's who we become through the pain, Kevin. And he becomes someone great that I look to and say, yes, in a different way, I want to be like that. When I leave here, I want people to say, yes, Morris the Connector helped me transform my life in seeing the light in the way he did.
Morris the Connector, one of the most inspirational and powerful, motivating speakers, inspirational speakers, not motivational speakers. I would say inspirational speakers in the UK. I am looking forward to the day you step foot on US soil. I'm looking forward to being part of the audience in order to hear you share your story and to see you do your thing. And hopefully it'll be room for thousands of people. I've asked this of many of my guests, and I ask this for a reason. The people that follow RMK Productions, my podcast, Talking with Kevin and Son, or my Sunday podcast, Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends, they are not the people that drive by the scene of an accident and watch to see if there's a dead body. The people that follow us will never be in the hundreds of thousands or the millions. They're only going to be the few. And we all know the people that really make this world go round is small groups. They have a higher call to action. And the people that follow us are those people. They get shit done. And I'll say it. And that's the title of my next book, by the way. Morris, if I were to ask you your one ask, and I want you to think about it and be very clear, because I've already had 4 people out of 153 interviews that I've done on Talking with Kevin and Son that have had someone within our circle that follows us or subscribes that have granted someone their wildest of wish. I want you to think about it real quick. Your ask, A-S-K. If you have one ask for it to come true, what would that be, Mr. Morris, the Connector?
My one ask would be is to be able to connect with the youths with resources enough to inspire and motivate them to get up and stand up and do what's necessary to become the champions in life that they are born to be. My ask would be for that, to create enough people around me to come together to do this and make it possible.
And I'm going to tie something in on to your ask. My story, Moore's story, is not original to anyone. There's a lot of us that have grown up with a mom in the house or grandparents in the house that are raising the children, or nowadays there's a lot more fathers stepping in and playing their role. An excuse only sounds good to the person that's making them. Sometimes we have to go through hard times like Mr. Morris did in order to realize what good times really felt like and what it looked like. I'm asking for you guys to grant Mr. Morris, the Connector, his ask. Bring him to the United States, have him sit into a room of more than 1,500 students that look like him, different people that are going through the same plight that he went through. And before the system gets a hold of you, allow them to experience through Morris, the Connector, his story and his dream. And maybe one day you'll be sitting across from Kevin McLemore and his host on Talking with Kevin and Son and telling your story and making a difference in someone's life. So Morris, before we say goodbye, I know you have an upcoming event and I would love for you to talk about it. And hopefully one day I'll get lucky enough in order to speak at one of your events or maybe even introduce you. I'll carry your bags. I don't have pride. Well, I do have pride, but I'll carry your bags. Tell me about your event. You have a whole event coming up with speakers.
Yeah, on the 26th of November, I have an event in London at Heathrow. You know, I'm going to plug in American speakers, Kevin, from across the pond virtually, and have live speakers, myself hosting, called Wear Your Own Crown, the Focus and Believe in Reset Mindset Tour of London, England, and then the world. So I'll be coming to get you, Kev. I'm coming to get you, boy. Honestly, I just want people to hear my story, which is my glory now, because who would have thought that this man would be the person he is today? Because I never thought that. But, you know, I want to say to everyone, you know, what is for you is for you. So just get up and fight back with everything you got.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever see Morris the Connector perform, I have turned the volume down today on Morris. But before I leave, Morris, leave us with a little taste of Morris the Connector. Give us a little takeaway before we sign off. What's your message to the people, the young people and old people listening to this conversation today? Be you, Morris.
My message to people is, we're either in a storm, going through a storm, or coming out of a storm. Get up, stand up for your rights, Bob Marley said. Bruce Lee said, knowledge will give you power. Character will give you respect by knowing who you are. The greatest tragedy in life, I would say, to every one of you, is breathing oxygen and not knowing why. It's lack of direction, not lack of time, because God gave us enough time to do whatever we want to do. He gave me time to change. Everything changes, but progress doesn't. We have to progress. We have to be persistent, because persistence is another word for faith. So I'm saying to every one of you, you've got it. Go and get it by fighting back with the power that God has given you. I have power, real power now, with my story to empower people, to let them realize that this is a gift to you that God has given me. I lost my mum, my dad, my sister, my brother, my wife, but that doesn't mean I should stand still. There's a reason for everything, everyone. And I'm here now to tell you my story and my glory and say, listen, I'm happy every minute of the day. I rise with my baking powder. If I was a cake, I would eat myself. I love myself so much. It's not about me anymore. It's about you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin, for having me here. It's about you. A gift to every one of you. Thank you for listening.
And thank you for dropping that knowledge on us. It was like, I felt like Hercules trying to keep up those two big areas. There was so much knowledge being dropped on us. One more time, how do people get in touch with you, Morris?
On Instagram, morristheconnector.com.
If you get a chance, connect with Morris ASAP. Connect with him on his workshop for November 26th. And to my listeners, I'm going to tell you, I always try to bring you something special. Our show is all about the everyday person and their stories. We're not looking for superstars and movie stars in order to tell their stories, because, you know, the deposits they make are not the deposits that we're putting back into our communities. We have covered so much information, and I hoped that at some point in this episode, we have enlightened you and touched you in a way that it will change not only you, but the way you view your neighbor and the way that you view the rest of the world. If you like what you've heard and want to see more, go to RMK Productions and Network on our YouTube page and subscribe. If you'd like to be a guest on Talking with Kevin and Son or on Motivational Sundays, please go to info@rmkproductions.org and go ahead and fill out the information. We'd love to have you. So, like I said, Morris, I appreciate you. 100 times over and multiply that whatever number you can, because it goes to infinity. My listeners, I cannot do this without you. Thank you for being loyal and subscribing and following. We have big things to come. And Morris, if you'd like to come back, there's a chair always awaiting for you. If you'd like to have one of your friends on here, we will welcome your guests. As my grandfather always said, when you get to a point that you can help someone else, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one, and we'll fade to black. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.